thank you very much for those joining us remotely and for those joining us here in person. Christine, if you have any difficulty hearing me, please let us know. You can use the chat function. You're muted right now, but Anne is here to watch. So if there is any difficulty hearing me, please let us know. All right. So that is me at the top, and that is Anne there, and I am the Manager of Professional Development with the Canadian Bar Association. I earned my CMP in January 2015, and I really enjoy promoting the program, and I like volunteering with meeting professionals international. Anne, do you have anything to say about yourself?
I work for the International Actuarial Association. I'm the meeting manager. I've been with my employer for almost 20 years now. And I got my CMP in 2016.
Fantastic. Yeah, she's muted. We don't let them talk.
No, but if she has a question?
If she has a question, she can use the chat function.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah. So if you've sent a message that says group chat, yep, hi Christine. So she should be able to see it. So that the people at home, there is a chat function for you, and you can just type back a response on that if you have any questions. So what we're going to go over today is an overview of the CMP program, the application process, and what type of support you have available to you. And then we're going to close off with MPI Ottawa's CMP Candidate Study Programming. Right now that includes a self-directed study guide. This is online resources, and we also have that boot camp that we're planning right now for January 11th and 12th this year. So put that in your calendar. If you are planning to write, make sure that you schedule your exam for after that period so you're as ready as you can be before that exam. Any questions about the agenda? Do I have approval of the agenda? Okay, all right. So the CMP program is offered by the Events Industry Council, and I include this note here that it was formerly called the Convention Industry Council. There's a little image there showing that they did a rebrand. It was probably about 3 or 4 years ago that they did this. The reason I make note of it is you might find some of the materials you're looking at still have the old branding. There is in fact a textbook that's out there still called the CIC manual, and there is a newer version of it, and the only thing that's changed is the cover. So if you do have the 9th edition of the CIC manual, we'll talk about this later, then you have the exact up-to-date version of it. It just doesn't have the right cover. So keep that in mind. So the CMP program was launched in 1985. It was intended to enhance the knowledge and performance of meeting professionals, promote the status and credibility of the meeting profession, and advance uniform standards of practice. It has continued today. It's grown quite substantially, and especially internationally success. At one point, there was a discussion about it being sort of North American and particularly American focused, but just in the last update that was done about the last 5 years, it has been made a heck of a lot more international friendly. They do a lot more metric system, and they do give a lot more examples from around the world. So it is a very good internationally recognized association. I include this slide as this was actually taken directly from EIC's official webinar that they do. And I'm making note on there, it does say the next webinar is Tuesday, October 8th at 1 p.m. Eastern. The reason I'm promoting this as well is it's sometimes great to get the information straight from the horse's mouth. They provide the most up-to-date and in-depth information. We're providing an overview today, but if you are looking for more, you still have questions that we just couldn't answer. I hope that's not the case. But if you do have questions, there is a link there. And if for any reason you're watching this after the fact, this is a recording, then please visit the EIC website. They run new webinars quarterly. So all you have to do is look up about information for future CMPs, and they'll have more information there, more up-to-date webinar information. And these are usually between 30 minutes and an hour. So it's really great to get the most up-to-date information, in-depth information about the CMP. But I do include the slide. They sort of show you the path. They want you to start by creating an online account and how you track your education and all the way up to writing your exam. Once you're certified for 5 years.
And the good news about that webinar is it actually gives you 1 hour, as a 1 hour credit.
That is another good point. If you are looking for continuing education credits towards earning your CMP, watching that webinar will give you 1 hour of those credits. So you can kill 2 birds with 1 stone. Good point. So we've condensed it down into about 5 steps for us that we think are the most important parts. First and foremost, you need to apply to write your CMP exam. So that means you actually have to apply to stand for this. You receive your approval notification. You pay your exam fee. So there's an application fee. There's also an exam fee. And you schedule your exam. And finally, you sit for your exam. All of that, and provided you pass that exam, will get you your certification. And we'll go through the process of the application and everything. All right.
Okay, so if we start with to apply to get yourself to write the CMP exam, everything you need to know is in the handbook that is on the screen there. It's a beautiful, how many pages?
It's
31-page document,
yeah. Yep.
It's actually, it'll give you, we're doing an overview of what's in the handbook right now, but it's a great tool to use once you start getting ready for your application. So this is required reading because it is, everything that's in there is to help you get started on your application. For the exam, you need to meet professional experience criteria and education criteria. So the three choices you have for the professional experience is the option 1, which I think is a big majority of us. We all flow through option 1, is 36 months of professional experience.
3 years.
Yeah. 3 years, yeah. They also mention that you don't need to have 36 consecutive months. You can, but it has to be within the last 5 years. So if you worked for a year and then you were off and then you started, so as long as you have 36 months. Option 2 is going to be 24 months of experience with an industry-specific degree. The degree has to be absolutely in the hospitality management or events or anything related to the industry. General business degrees like business communication or marketing, that doesn't apply. It has to be either hotel management or whatever.
What qualifies as professional experience?
If you've been working as, for example, I'll use myself as an example. I've been working for 6 years as a meeting planner when I applied. So I was already doing the work and just wanted to get the designation to go with the experience to enhance the.
So some will wonder if you have to have a title that specifically said meetings in it. You don't. You just need to you need to demonstrate in your application that you've been doing something specifically related to the meetings industry. So administrative assistants often can apply for these things because they'll work on these things, or secretaries. But certainly those people who are in more higher profile positions are very obvious. If you have that title, you're the sales manager, or you're it's very clear and evident.
And we'll also cover that a bit more with the documents that you need to supply the EIC for your application. One of the things they want is your resume. And in your resume, you're just going to put only the items that are related to meetings and event design. And the last one, which I think is maybe a little less popular, is 36 months as an educational instructor. And I think that one speaks for itself, unless anyone has any questions. And then, so that's for the professional experience. Then for the education, what we were just talking about, what Paul mentioned earlier, is we need 25 block hours of education or industry internship. The industry internship is mostly would be used if someone chose the option 2, the 24 months of experience with the industry specific degree. Most of those people will have to do an internship to get their degree. I'm sorry, I'm French, so I tend to be looking for my words. And again, it's within the past 5 years. And the internship is a total of 200 hours. For the clock hours of educational activities, the EIC has some CMP provider, yeah. So they have the CMP preferred providers. For example, MPI is one of them. So if you go to an MPI education event, it takes maybe a week or two, and then it'll be uploaded to your EIC account automatically. And then all you have to do once the event is listed there is actually put in how many hours you've done. For example, I went to WEC in Toronto this summer. And so the activity is in my EIC account. I just need to go in and say, well, I did 2 hours or an hour or 3 hours or whatever. Yes?
So for some of us who, for example, I went to see WEC, I would not have had an account, and I didn't go and historically attend.
Yes, for sure. This is where you're going to do your, how do they call it? The personal.
You create your online profile with them. I'm not 100% sure if they can retroactively add your hours there.
No, but you can self-report it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you have like your name badge or you have any proof that you were there.
The course description as well sometimes.
Yes.
I remember having a search in my emails for the confirmation and then a general description of whatever it was, and then that's your proof that you attended.
Yes, and you are also.
Keep all my name badges in the trophy case.
Yeah, yeah, and most of those in the trophy case. And the description will always, or 90% of the time, will indicate what domain.
Yeah.
Because each time you're self-reporting an hour, you have to mention what domain it applies to.
So we will get into the specific domains, but just to briefly cover it, there are 9 domains, study areas that you need to go over to be aware of for the exam. We will get into those, but it was a requirement that was added in 2016, I believe, that a good portion of your education needs to be specifically in domains, in one of these domains. It can't be a networking education thing or something that's not specifically related to the meetings industry. There is a portion that's allowed there, but the majority of those educational hours need to be directly relatable to at least one of those 9 domains. And we'll certainly go over those domains. Just because I'm curious, we have 3 people in the room right now who have their CMP designation. I know personally for myself, I did option 1 for both of those. I did the 3 years of experience plus 25 clock hours. And did you do anything different?
Same thing.
Same thing?
Yeah.
Nicole, same thing?
I remember at some point there was a discussion over whether the Algonquin event management counted because it's a 1-year program. If that was considered a degree, it for sure should be. But is there been any clarification on could that count towards the degree plus the 2 years?
Well, I'm going to use myself as an example right now. I also instruct with Algonquin College, and I happened to, when I applied for this, I'd already had the experience prior to attending the event management program. And just to make things easy, because it technically wasn't a degree program, it was a graduate certificate, I went with the clock hours option. Because it was a full year program, my clock hours were very easy to calculate because I had lots of hours from doing a full year program.
Well, my memory might not be as good as well, but I did the graduate certificate as well, convention and meetings management certificate, and it did count for anything, except for my own personal satisfaction.
Okay. So maybe like the 4-year officially. That might be a good question for our PNC.
Yeah.
You have that question? Because I did it. So.
Okay, so you might be.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on. Okay, so as I mentioned earlier, you will need to supply your resume when you do your application, and of course, just put on your relevant job experience. If you worked in a pharmacy 10 years ago, they don't really They don't want to know that. They just really want specifics on what is related to the industry, like if you did like board meetings or you were an assistant of some sort or whatever, meeting budgets, anything that you've done.
Make sure your CV, your resume is highly relevant.
Yes.
Absolutely don't put on your Taco Bell job.
Yeah.
10 years ago. Yeah, no, it has to be specifically related to the industry. So it's easier for them to review as well.
And then the next notes I have is kind of with this slide and the next one. For the $250, like there's a $250 US fee just to submit the application. So if we can go to the next slide, please. So we'll go through this slide one by one, but the important thing is before you hit that submit button, just make sure that you have absolutely all of the requirements that they are asking, because you can be your application can be declined just because you have two hours missing, or 1 clock hour is not relevant to the industry, or you don't have enough on your resume. Any which reason it could be taken into consideration to have a declined application, and then you have to pay again to resubmit. So just make sure that you have everything that they're asking for.
I will just add to that because during my time, they didn't track the hours very well for you. So it was a lot of making sure that I submitted and being sure about it. The online tracking system, particularly if you do your education with CMP preferred providers, when that hour gets uploaded to you, or when the program gets uploaded to your online profile, and you just claim the hours as long as it's within the hours you're allowed to claim, there's typically not going to be any question about it because that program is pre-vetted. So you have a lot more assurance when you do a program that is automatically uploaded.
Yeah, but just you keep a file with all of your backup documentation anyways. I'm not sure, I've never heard of it, but I imagine at some point somebody could be audited.
Oh, absolutely.
I imagine, like
it could happen. I saw we had a question.
Yes, it says track your continuing education activities as you complete them. Is that the 25 hours before that have to be completed for your application, or is it?
Yeah, it's before you need to have them done and completed before you apply. For me personally, what I've done is I did have a few MPI educational events that I attended, but because I had an idea in my mind that I wanted to write my exam at a particular time frame, I wanted to make sure that everything was done quickly for me. So I think I did most of them. I'd say probably 70 or 80% of my hours were done with webinars online. So which was pretty easy for me. I would start the webinar, I print screen, and then do the webinar and whatnot. And then at the end, I print screen again, and I had the confirmation email as well. So as much information as you can give them when you do your self-reporting, you'll put in whatever, like if it was an MPI webinar, and then you'll put your hours, and then you'll upload a PDF of the proof that you actually attended. Some of them will even email you like a little mini certificate by mail after, just to confirm that you've done it.
They get the request all the time, I assure you. People want to make sure that they have record that they attended these things.
Exactly. What right now is what I'm not too, I guess, happy about is they don't delete the hours on the EIC that you've done for this particular thing. So it's like for mine, everything I did to apply is still there, and then I have to kind of go and say, okay, what did I do after that?
Yeah. What's part of my
recertification? Yeah. To me, in my opinion, they should. I don't know.
Unless they're counting the 2012 hours still, otherwise it's like.
Exactly, they should get rid of it.
Just pointing out, we have a question from an online participant, and it is, can all of your hours be webinars?
Yes,
the
of
answer
course.
Is yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could literally just watch 25 hours of webinars and on your lunch breaks if you want to, and that would
drop Netflix for a weekend and do webinars.
Yeah.
Is there a repository of silly amounts of webinars?
You're getting ahead of me. Later in the slideshow, we do have an example to show where a good repository, especially if you're an MPI member, you have access to a lot of free webinars. Certainly, there's lots of webinar options out there for you.
So that's great, Christine. I just saw your notes. So great for you. She's already done her hours, I guess, through webinars. So that's great. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Okay, so now, I think the next one is for you.
I just want, before we leave this slide, and it's not true anymore, and maybe you'll get mixed information, but the last point says that you can submit, once your application is complete and you're sure of it, you can submit it at any time. It used to be that the EIC had specific application periods. If you want to be essentially testing in this window, then you should, or testing in this window or later, you should submit it by X date. At this point, they don't have that rule anymore because of a lot of the online reviewing process. They've really improved their timeline for it. So going to the next one, the approval notification comes within 3 to 5 weeks these days, whereas it used to take a lot longer than that. And that it required a heck of a lot more review period. So that usually would be a limiting factor for people to apply. If they really wanted to write within the next exam window, then they would have to rush to get it in by a certain date. So this is nice. It has improved the length of review.
Is there someone that is there a resource we would have to see? Kind of review our application process to see, hey, do you think that this would qualify? Or
that's a good question. So just to reiterate, is there someone that would review your application to say this would qualify, or the things you want to submit with your application? I'm not sure of a specific service. I bet you anything if you did contact the EIC directly and ask them these questions, there is actually a coordinator specifically for tracking the hours. And I'm certain that if you spoke with that person, that he would advise you and say, yes, this would definitely qualify. I would recommend including that. As I've mentioned, a lot of the best options, particularly some of the webinars that have that preferred provider stamp on it, those hours, there's no question, it's going to be legitimate. And if your resume, your CV says you've been involved in the meetings industry and it's pretty evident, you're safe.
For the webinars, I remember sometimes I get notices like from Meetings Net and whatnot, and they're showing like webinars and they say, oh, well, it qualifies for an hour or whatever. If it doesn't specifically say in the description, EIC approved, whatever, I just would not take it.
Sometimes you skip over it.
You skip over it,
it's not as convenient.
Because in this instance, I mean, once you have your CMP, or if you're just doing it because you want the knowledge, that's fine. But if you're doing it in lieu of getting your CMP, not in lieu, but to get your CMP, I mean, I would just skip over it if there's not a specific notice on it.
Absolutely. So more money comes out of your pocket to pay for your exam fee. So once you have been approved and you're ready to write, you know when you want to write. They have 4 testing windows a year. It used to be that they were just a week and a half, 2 weeks in length in a given month. Now it's the entire month. So the testing dates, and we'll show those a little bit later, but off the top of my head, it is January, May, August, and November. So you should be able to schedule dates at any time during those months. They have testing facilities in lots of cities, including the major cities throughout Canada. So there are lots of testing options. But in order to do that, to have the right to schedule, you have to pay that exam fee, which was recently raised from $450 to $475 US dollars. So that's in addition to your application, and that's just what you are paying directly to the Events Industry Council. This doesn't include any resources or textbooks or study materials that you would invest in.
Can I add something
Please.
to reserve your exam day as well? I thought I was all nice and smart back then. I wanted to write at a specific time, so I worked it backwards. Okay, I need 5 weeks for approval for my application, and then I need to do this and this and this, and then I'll be ready to write my exam. Well, then that didn't happen because work happened and life happened. So just make sure that when you're decided to, because you do have just a year to write your exam once you apply.
Once you apply or once you're approved?
Once you're approved, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, so I kind of just made it.
Once you've committed.
It's a really good recommendation that you should try and make sure that you're about as ready as you possibly can be before you're scheduling that exam.
Exactly.
Some people, the very fact of scheduling the exam may be the encouraging factor that gets them studying. But it's really, it's your own personal style that works for this. But it's true, once you've applied and you've been approved, you have up to 1 year to schedule that exam. So that's up to 4 testing windows that you could be writing in. As I mentioned, those are the dates that they have available. If you're ever curious about the testing dates, there is a link there, and it's very easy to find from the EIC website. It's under testing dates. So these are the 4 windows. I mentioned that they do the CMP. They also do the CMP HC, which is for healthcare. It is a special designation for those that work in the healthcare industry. I've considered it from time to time, and we do know people in the Ottawa chapter who have this designation as well. So you can always go one more, and they now do testing at the same periods throughout the year. So here's an example of a colleague that provided it. You can see the old branding. So this is when they have successfully registered for the exam, they received an email telling them all the information and telling them that they needed to then make sure that they knew all of the information from Prometric, who provides the exam. This is the company that's located throughout North America and in other locations that provide these tests. So you can make your appointment with them directly. You can take a look at where their locations are. So it's prometric.com/EIC if you have any questions. They do have, so you can book web-based, and you can receive some selection of possible dates and times. And they also do include some weekends. Certainly these dates fill up quickly. So if you are towards the end of October and you really want to write in November, you might have some trouble trying to find a specific date. It might be recommended that you look at January or later at that point. And here's an example of a confirmation that our colleague Sandra also received once she had scheduled that. So it told her the location, the time, had some information in there. Another reason I really recommend the EIC's website directly, they talk about a lot of the information about what you need to bring and be prepared for the exam itself. So if you get to that point, watch their webinar. It's really, really in depth about the whole process. They do bioscans and everything before you write that exam. They want to make sure the academic integrity of the exam is maintained.
Also, advice that I got was to go to physically see where it is, and that may or may not, like, so the testing that Prometric did, it was around like the San Laurent shopping complex, but it was like, it looked like it was in the building, but it was somewhere else. So anyways, I had gone to like actually check out the building where it was, that way the day of the exam, okay, I know where I'm going, and you don't have to like be running around a shopping mall also stressed out on the morning of your exam. So depending on how familiar you are with the area, doing like a drive-by.
A site inspection.
Yeah, that definitely helps to kind of, like, as you're coming in, right, just to kind of settle you in that morning.
I've included an image there, and this is an image of what a Prometric testing center looks like. What they will provide you with is a whiteboard, and it is entirely computer-based. Another thing that I liked about the recent webinar that I watched, they even showed you a view of what the exam might look like. So you can really see how the multiple choice questions are presented to you. We will get into how it's formatted. But if you're really looking for an in-depth view of the exam and how it really appears on the screen, check out that other webinar as well. These are the domains that I mentioned earlier. Anne mentioned the handbook. That is one of the required readings. The other required reading is the international standards, and this goes into all of the 9 domains. There used to be 10. I think there is still a little bit of information on the 10, which was professionalism, but it was only worth about 2% of the overall exam, and they decided to reallocate everything. So you can see meeting or event design now has 34%. They felt that was where the lion's share of information should come from. So now that is representative of how much you should spend your studying on and how much the exam is likely to include questions related to that. So this is an important one just to understand what the domains are. As you're reviewing them from the international standards, take a look at the ones that make a lot of sense to you. If you feel really comfortable in that area, then you don't need to spend as much time studying that area. Focus on the ones that are a little bit more foreign to you.
Now, because this slide is up on the screen, I'll just mention, can I talk about the tentative pass and fail, since that's up there? Just keep the slide up there.
Sure.
It's just because this is good to see, because when, like Paul mentioned, when you're studying, if you have an area where, you know, I don't know how what your study habits are going to be, and I encourage you to take the boot camp and the online study that will give you pointers and how to do your studies. But I'll take, for instance, flashcards. I did flashcards, so then I filed them by domain, and then I could see exactly where my weak points were, so I could concentrate more on those. So then when you get to the exam at the end, if you pass, you don't know what your score is. You just see that you passed. But if you do fail, your domains are going to be listed there, and it'll say, for example, strategic planning. It'll say lower than the level of
Proficiency.
yeah, you'll be higher or lower than the minimum required for this domain, and that's where you're going to see at the end of your exam. We hope that you all pass, but if you do fail, that's how they'll be, and it'll say, like, there's a screen, there's a slide in the
in the webinar as well. So again, they go very in the webinar that the EIC offers. They go into great depth for the exam process, and they talk about, if you're successful, you'll see a slide like this. If you're not successful in the exam, they'll give you all of the domains, and they'll spell it out and say, you're at the level of proficiency here, but you're not here, 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 and here. So they'll tell you the ones that you really should go back and restudy in order to take it again. Because we're talking about needing to take it again, I want to mention that you cannot take an exam during the same testing window. So if you didn't do well in early January, you can't come back later in January. You have to wait until May or later to be able to write your next exam, if that happens. So I mentioned these were the required readings. Both the international standards and the handbook are free to download at any time from the EIC website. I recommend going and doing that. The handbook gives you all the information. It's really great for what we're covering in this session right now. It spells it all out for you, and really gives you all the information around education and experience. And then, of course, the international standards tells you what you need to prepare for on the exam. Am I?
Yes.
I'm totally, you know what, I just realized I'm covering what Anne said she was going to cover.
And I'm not saying anything. You were doing so well.
I'm going to pass it back over to Anne.
Okay, so here are the material that is recommended for the exam, and they are also the tools that you would use if you do take the online study group and or the boot camp. So it's all the same books. I know that I think you can get them directly from EIC. Well, one is PCMA, I believe, and EIC, but I think you can get them as well secondhand on the Algonquin website, if I'm not mistaken. I bought mine through Algonquin, I believe.
There are lots of options to get these ones. The EIC does sell the full package through their online store. So the final one that you see in there, professional meeting management, is put out by PCMA, but because it's part of the package, they feel that all three should be sold together, so they sell it together as a study package. The image right there, you see the CIC manual, Convention Industry Council manual, and you see the Events Industry Council manual. As I said, those are just the variants of the cover. So as long as you have the 9th edition of one of those books, you're fine. And just about the middle one there, the industry glossary, this up until a point was entirely free online. And if you visit the EIC's website and search glossary, you will find a glossary in there that you can search a lot of these definitions. It should be free and available to you. The document here is just a print version. I have yet to find any words in the printed version that I've not been able to search online. So that is a tip, a hint.
See, I wouldn't have done all that.
No, it's good. We're adding to each other's. Next one.
Okay, so the exam itself. When you get to the exam, a personal recommendation. Sorry, I forgot about that one.
No problem.
This is, I think, my personal favorite, and Nicole's as well. You can get it for free on Google Play or whatever, Apple App Store or iOS devices. If you get it for free, you get just a minimal number of questions. I think I paid like $40 for mine, or $35 or $40. And I still have it today, and I still make good use of it. They have, you can select if you want to study in meeting design or strategic planning or whatnot, and then, or just an example of an exam. So you answer the questions, and when you get them wrong, they actually tell you what reference, like in the PCMA book, or no, the EIC book, they will actually tell you where to find the answer. And I use that a lot to do even my flashcards. I used it to prepare my flashcards, where every time I had one wrong, I'd do a flashcard with it.
Before we continue too far, I want to quickly go back to this one page. So we mentioned the required readings, handbook, and the international standards. These ones are technically called the recommended reading list. These are also required, if we're speaking in frank terms. The exam itself is entirely developed from what you find in these textbooks. And every single question, if there is not something that you can reference back to one of these resources, it is removed from the exam. So this really comes down to the most important thing that you would purchase. You need to have these reading resources.
Yeah.
And it's certainly good to note that there is an app out there to download that can quiz you on a regular basis.
Get multiple choice.
Exactly.
So it's a nice kind of
Exactly.
Yes. Okay, so the exam, as Paul mentioned, the windows, we covered that, and the pass and fail score, I covered that as well earlier. So you have 165 multiple choice questions, and you have 3.5 hours to do it. I did see that there's a tutorial at the beginning of 15 minutes, and because everything is done on the computer, I highly recommend that you listen to the whole, like don't skip it, just because they'll show you, like in the exam, you have a question and you can highlight, you can cross out information, like if you're reading a question and you can cross out all of the information that's redundant that you don't need, you can highlight, you can put little sticky notes and whatnot. So the tutorial is very good for that. And at the end, they always have like a survey of the questions, and I can't remember exactly what's in the survey.
Typically, it's about how did you feel about this exam? Did you feel it was fair? Or maybe you thought you failed and you're going to say it was terrible.
Yeah.
And they take that into account. You're like, I really got it. And then it's like, oh, I got it. Oh, I should have taken it now. I would have been friendly on that survey. So yeah, they usually do a post survey beyond that. So the actual writing time for the exam is 3.5 hours.
Right.
And then when you're sitting for it, there'll usually be a little tutorial, and they allot that in. That's in addition to it. And certainly you need to arrive. They recommend that you arrive 30 minutes before your exam. I believe if you get into the range of 15 minutes before your exam, they may not admit you. So that is, you want to make sure you're there promptly, early.
Well, I think I got there like an hour ahead of time, just because I was worried about traffic, and I just wanted to sit in the waiting area and just flash through my flashcard
Or just breathe.
and just breathe. Yeah. So once you get to the like for the exam itself, like there's it's a multiple answer.
Multiple choice.
Multiple
Yep.
choice. They're all multiple choice. And like it says here, there's no trick questions, and there's nothing that is all of the above or none of the above. It's really one best answer. What I found during my, and it says it right there, what I found during my exam was that everything was pretty much, I'd say 80% of my exam was situational. And one thing that you would learn in the online study group or the boot camp is don't use your
Personal.
experience. You've got to go with a book. Exactly.
The textbook answer.
A textbook says, because for instance, I don't know if I'd have an answer that was, if this happens at one of your meetings, what are you going to do? A, B, C, or D? And then A, B, C, they're all good. What do I do? Like, but you have to choose the best one. So it's a bit tricky on that side. So you really have to know your books to go with what's in the book and not your personal experience. The other thing is, if you're not native English speaking, if you're French, if you're Italian, if you're whatever, take advantage of that. Even if you speak very good English, because they'll give you an extra 30 minutes. And I'm French, and silly me, I forgot to ask for it.
And it's important that you do that early on,
Yes.
before you're scheduling your exam.
Before you,
So, absolutely.
Yeah.
Take,
Oh, yeah,
take advantage of
because-
all the time you can get.
I'm also French.
Yeah. So even if we work in English all day, we talk in English all day, well, this is a little perk that a little 30 minutes can go a long way sometimes. The other thing that I noticed too is when you get ready to book your exam, make sure that your EIC account and your government, because you're going to have to show government ID. So make sure that the first name and last name match in both. If you booked your exam and it's en Charlevoix, and then you come up and it's on La Marche, your access will be denied to the exam. When you get there, they're going to give you a locker. You're going to put everything in. You're not allowed to bring anything inside with you. And as Paul mentioned, they're going to give you a dry erase, and that's all you have. And if you're sitting at the exam and you need to go, let's say, to the washroom, you have to literally check out. You go to the bathroom and then you have to check in again. So that's why when I got there early, like they check your ID, they do this, they do that, and you got to put your stuff away. So
Bioscans, metal detectors,
yes.
no jewelry allowed other than a wedding or engagement ring.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Okay, and then this is we covered it, or I covered it a bit earlier about the if you fail, if you pass. Am I going into yours?
No. Maybe I'll just mention with this one, the reason it says tentative, you can essentially count this as the result. So as soon as you finish the exam, it'll say congratulations, you passed. And there is a percentage of questions you have to get right. It's 55% or higher.
It's scaled.
And they are scaled.
Scaled
it's not
score.
55% of the questions. Some of the questions are more difficult than others. Those ones get weighted more highly. So you might get 2 percentage points for answering this particular question because it required a little bit of calculation or something. Some of the other ones that were very quick and easy to answer might be worth less. We can't say with any certainty, we're not the EIC, but you have to have a 55% weighted scale or higher to officially have passed it. So they give you the tentative pass-fail grade once you're finished. And the reason it's called tentative, it's not official until they email you your certificate, or if they mail your certificate a few months later. On the off chance that some of the test questions in there may be challenged, and they might say, oh, okay, well, this one's removed. And if you were just on the cusp, I've never heard of it actually happening, but there's always the possibility that they could rescind a pass, or they could for very well tell you, this question was not well worded, you were very close to the cusp, you now passed. So these are some of the things that could happen. So it is a tentative result that you get at the end of the exam.
Is it an algorithm that learns where your weaknesses are and then tests, so it's a dynamic questionnaire, or is it a static?
It's the same essential test each testing period. So in the month of January, everybody's going to write essentially the same test. That's my understanding. The questions may be presented in a different order. That's one of the reasons that they don't allow you to test during the same window.
Right.
Is there a larger question bank that they pull different questions from? Because I think I remember there's different questions on someone else's exam, even within the same
That's a good point. Sorry, yes. So I'm going to go back to this very quickly. So we mentioned 165 multiple questions. Only 150 of those are scored. These are ones that have done well previously and are technically vetted questions that are good. Every single time a new test is run, they always throw in 15 pre-test questions. So this is the first time they're seeing people. And this is how they're going to say, well, how did people fare on that? They've done about average. That is a good question in there. How did people fare on it? They did terribly. We shouldn't be in there. We need to reword that. So they're in there. So sometimes those 15 questions may be the thing that made you feel awful, but they were just test questions. It was the first time they were in there. So that is one of the things that makes the test different every time. And they may throw in different testing questions.
And of course, you won't know which is which.
Exactly. You want to try it. You want to attempt to do your best on every single one because you have no idea if this is the first time it's going through and if that's a graded question or not. So this relates to a question that came up earlier. Where can you find some CEU credits? We recommend the MPI website. They have a whole bunch of information on there. I've included a link here specifically for the MPI Academy, and they have all of these webinars. If you're signed in under your member ID, if you are an MPI member, most of these are available for free to you. So I definitely recommend taking advantage of that. I realize that we're at an MPI event right now, but other organizations, including PCMA, other organizations offer free webinars quite often as well. So you don't necessarily have to spend or break the bank to get these hours. Additional opportunities come up all the time, specifically with the chapter. We hold education events throughout the year. We're doing a lunch and learn in the next month or so.
Which is free for
another free example.
October 3rd. So
October 3rd.
Get your credits so that happens not a lot of
And of course, there are conferences. We, as a group here, we're talking about WEC, the World Education Congress. This past summer, it was held in Toronto. It's often anywhere in North America. It's usually in a lot of American cities. That one is excellent for a plethora of hours because it's hosted directly by them. But of course, that's at cost, and not everybody can afford that. So
It's like 18, 19 hours.
lots of hours you can get from attending something like that. So if you are looking to apply now and you have attended that, that's going to be your plethora of information of your hours right there.
What about the event? I think that one qualifies for 2 hours.
Very good point. So here with MPI Ottawa, as well as the Quebec Montreal chapter and the Toronto chapter, they host the event. It's called The Event, and it's held every spring. We've had 2 so far, and they have excellent education that are done by a lot of your local chapter members. And if you need money for some of these things, there are scholarships available to you.
Yes.
Take advantage of these. A lot of the scholarship money it goes unclaimed. It is there. It's available. If there's a good rationale to say why you should should have your certified meeting professional designation, this is a really great resource to do it. They offer scholarships specifically related to the CMP throughout the year, so you're not missing a specific deadline, but certainly recommend to get it sooner than later if you're looking to certify in the next while, because it does take a little bit of time for them to approve your application. Yeah. Has anybody ever gone the scholarship route here? No?
But someone in our group did, our study group did. She had.
I did not go the scholarship route. But yes, I have known people that have done the study groups with us that did do scholarship routes. And I know some people who are interested right now, and they're just waiting on scholarship approval before they really get their whole application in. So if that is your limiting factor, then please take advantage of these scholarship dollars.
One of the chairs for the MPI Golf and AGM, she applied through the foundation and got her MPI membership. So, and she said it was as simple as just applying.
So I've got a couple of scholarships as well for people, so there's, ask for it.
If you're not a member, this is a great way to get your membership, as you pointed out. Yeah. All right. Are there any other questions about the application process, the exam process, anything? I'm going to get into just a little bit about our CMP programming that MPI Ottawa offers. And certainly once we've done this, we can answer more questions. I think it's a poll. It's a poll. There you go. So MPI Ottawa specifically at this moment offers 2 versions of the MPI Ottawa offers two specific pieces of programming. One is the study guide. This is an online self-directed study guide, and you can get that. It's available throughout the year. If you're an MPI Ottawa member, it is $50, or it's $100 for non-members. All you have to do is email the admin at mpi-ottawa.ca and request it. They'll send you a payment form, and then we'll get you set up with your access details. I recommend getting this sooner than later. I think this is a really great resource to get on the track. You don't even have to have applied for the CMP exam to get studying, to just start getting prepared. The more prepared you feel, as soon as you have applied for the exam, or as soon as you put your application in, then you'll be even that much more ready to apply to schedule your exam date. So this includes online aids, including a practice test. There are domain quizzes, so we do quizzes by the different domains, and several narrated video slideshows. So you'll hear my voice on some of those, and some of our colleagues as well, that they're pre-recorded and show you an overview of the information. Highly recommended. The second item that we offer is the CMP boot camp. We've been doing it annually in January now for the last.
It's
I got specifically our boot camp.
It's been pointed out that two people in the room here are featured in the picture. So the CMP boot camp has been going on now annually in January for the last 3 years, I believe, and we have the next one set up for January 11th to 12th, 11th and 12th. And that is both a Saturday and Sunday. It is $175 for members, or $225 for non-members. What's nice about it as well is that it includes the self-directed study guide to help you prepare for that boot camp. So the intention of the boot camp is to really get you prepared. It does a lot of rapid fire questions and games to help you really feel prepared for the exam. And if you're not 100% prepared for the exam, it really helps you identify areas where you might want to do a little bit more studying and cram it. We recommend it highly for those people who are about to write their exam, but it's not required. All we ask is that you come engaged and ready to participate. If you have a background in the industry, you're already well set. Just to have a look at that study guide in order to do it. If you buy your study guide, and you later on decide you want to attend the boot camp and there's still time, we do honor that amount that you've already paid for the study guide towards the cost of the boot camp. So that's those are the two major things there. So some of the games we play Who Wants to Be a Certified Meeting Professional, and we do Jeopardy games, and we do a mock exam. The last time we did it, what's pictured there was when we did it with handwritten pieces, but we have since moved it onto an online platform so people can do it a little more similar to what you would actually experience in provincial.
And personally, having done the boot camp, I highly recommend it. It's 2 days of interactive learning. You're not just sitting with your textbooks, you're exchanging with everybody in the room, and it was a very good experience.
Those discussions really help to reinforce things. I ended up doing one in July, and I didn't write until November. So for me, I just sort of read it, and then that was kind of almost the beginning of my official studying. So you can, and I think some people wrote directly after that. So you can, depending on what works best for you, you can do it in different ways.
We've definitely had both people who are ready to write 2 weeks after the boot camp, and we've had people who are ready to write a year later. And all of them have reported back that the boot camp was essential in getting them to where they felt ready to write, and really identified for them and made them understand what type of question they might see on the exam. I do want to note that we are volunteers, and certainly we don't represent the EIC. We cannot guarantee success on your exam, but we have had a history of successful candidates from going through these programs. So that's our push there. The next slide is a little promotional video, so we'll just put that on, and then we'll nearly be finished. And hopefully it plays. Are you studying to become a certified meeting professional? Administered by the Events Industry Council, the CMP designation represents a standard of excellence in today's meetings, conventions, and exhibitions industry. If you have applied to earn your CMP designation, or you are thinking about applying, MPI Ottawa's CMP Bootcamp may be for you. Our bootcamp includes a full weekend review of CMP domains, games, slideshows, and mock exams. In order to get the most out of the review, participants are expected to have thoroughly studied the recommended reading list prior to attending the CMP bootcamp. So don't let the studying deter you from signing up. To assist you with your studying, registered bootcamp participants are also granted online access to specially developed CMP study aids, including quizzes and video presentations. For more information on the next CMP bootcamp and to learn more about obtaining your CMP designation, please visit mpi.ca/CMP. Thank you very much. One disclaimer about the video is it does end on a note saying visits MPI Ottawa/CMP. The MPI Ottawa website underwent a change, and I believe some of the domain redirects are not necessarily pointing to the right spot. We haven't updated that yet, and we're looking to see if we can get that redirected. So perhaps if you're listening to this as a recording later on, that may work. But if you don't find it, just visit the MPI Ottawa website, and you can easily navigate to the CMP information under education. I believe they have a new CMP button pretty easily found in the header at the moment. So lots of the very, very easy to find if not right away. So just the last slide that's here is about the CMP bootcamp and what you might want to do. It says that you should participate if you have applied, you intend to write your exam, but you want to make sure that you're writing your exam after the bootcamp. So in this case, we have said January 2020 or later, and that you make sure that you schedule it after the actual dates of the bootcamp, which are January 11th and 12th. So make sure it's after that date. But certainly it could be May, could be August, could be the following November, as long as you're comfortable with that. We just ask that you come engaged and ready to learn for the bootcamp. And then we absolutely ask that you get to your reading resources, those 3 recommended required readings that we talked about. And we ask you to thoroughly study, but we understand that life happens. And we have had people that have come in there because they just have really great background and history and knowledge. They've attempted a little bit on the study guide, and you're ready to participate. So that's our pitch for the CMP bootcamp, and certainly the study guide.
And there's candy prizes.
Yes.
There was a lot of incentives for good participation in the bootcamp.
Candy incentives. We will load you with candy.
The Who Wants to Be Millionaire $1 Million prize was the big.
Oh yeah, like as you go,
peanut butter cups.
Yes.
So that concludes what we have to discuss specifically here. Are there any questions from those online or those in the room? Outstanding things?
What are the pass rates?
Pass rates. I don't know if EIC shares that information. Speaking from firsthand knowledge, people fail all the time. It does happen. It's something that you do need to accept as a reality with the CMP exam. It is hard. And one of the things we say is it's not always about your experience, it's what does the book say. And so it really becomes imperative that you read through that book before you actually sit down to write that exam. And that's one of the things that we've done with our study guide and with the boot camp. We've tried to find reference information for everything in the textbook. So you have a lot of these things and quirky little bits that you're like, that's not true. Nope, the book says it, here it is on that page. And it may very well end up being a question on your exam. So these are the some of the things, and it does happen. It happens to some of the best. Some people who are very experienced, very influential, and certainly there are people who who are unsuccessful in the exam. So there is no guarantee that you will pass it every time. So I don't want to give you any preconceived notions that you're going to do it just because you've done all this stuff. it really comes down to you. Only you can guarantee the success of that exam.
I think it's about you're using your experience, but also you don't want to be relying too heavily on your experience, because often it's the industry standard timeline to submit whatever this is might be 4 months. You know that would never happen in your day-to-day, but in the context of the question, if that's the question about a timeline, 4 months is what the book answer is. So it's kind of a balance, I think, between the two.
And I think it just gives you more pride once you have those 3 little letters at the end of your name. You know it's not everybody that can have it. You really need to work hard and you're a professional.
Yeah, piggybacking on that, what kind of benefits should people expect to gain from getting that designation?
Go ahead.
So EIC does have some good information on that. There are jobs out there that specifically seek the CMP designation, and more often than not, if you don't have it, they'll say it's preferred. And typically those who have their CMP designations tend to earn higher than those who don't. So this is based on data that's out there. It's not true across the board. It depends on the job you're in and then the employer that recognizes the importance of the designation. But if you do have it and somebody recognizes it, they recognize it as a stamp of excellence to say that you have done you paid your dues. You really understand this. You should come in and be pretty great in our organization. So.
I think because I have an organization that was valued it, when I got it, I was able to sort of talk about it to a bit of a raise. And I know for other people, dealing with people in the industry, is if you see CMP, actually even on the supplier side, that's, I know sometimes it's not just planners that do this. So if you're working with a venue and you see that they have their CMP, there's kind of like you know that there's a shared knowledge in the background. So you're like, okay, well they'll understand this a little bit better, or it's basically just kind of within the industry, it kind of helps you recognize people that have that shared body of knowledge, just as kind of a designation.
It's kind of why I'm interested too. It's ironically to be to empathize, you could say, with being planners and understand a little bit more about what everybody does.
Yeah, and there's been quite a few suppliers I think have taken it and I think have found it useful. So it's throughout the industry, it works on either side.
I think you'll find that as you're doing it, the question related to a supplier versus a planner getting it, and there are good examples of suppliers having it, and really the knowledge that you gain from it, some of it is very specific to the supplier side, about venues and AV equipment, and there's some really good information in there. For me, having done this on the planner side, I remember finding a lot of that information difficult for me, and that's where I had to spend a lot more of my time around supplier specs and that kind of information. So, yeah.
Interesting. Thanks.
So the certification is good for 5 years. Then what happens after? The whole thing again? Or do I just go to boot camp and go to the exam? So
again, the question related to the certification, it is good for 5 years. Once you have it, once you pass that exam, you are certified for 5 years. To recertify, you have to get another amount of clock hours, and you need to pay a new fee, and that is it. Provided you do that in the appropriate amount of time, you do not have to retake the exam, and that's probably the most the nicest thing. So that you just really need to maintain it, just to say that you are continuing your education, and you're still going to pay the money.
And don't do it like me, just keeping all of my education in a drawer somewhere, because now I have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and that's why it's really nice having your online profile, especially when you have a
Yes.
but you're automatically doing that. Because I remember like the legwork trying to, especially before we had the auto account, trying to figure out what I've been to and track down receipts and like what else, trying to upload that. Whereas if you kind of do it over time, it's just like ready to go, and then
It's what a true meeting planner should do. Be
Yes.
organized.
Does not always happen.
As long as you know where it is. You're
Yeah, it's in my emails.
Yeah,
I'll
somewhere.
figure it out. Yeah.
That's what I was saying. Well, it's in this drawer, but I changed my furniture at the office, and all this drawer turned into these boxes. So I have to do that soon.
Any other questions before we wrap this up?
It's a very good presentation.
Oh, thank you.
The questions I had at the beginning were answered.
Fantastic. Thank you. This presentation I built on the shoulders of other giants, so this has been.
Oh, question.
Yes.
So if you fail the exam, you have to pay again to do the exam again?
That is.
Apply again to the exam?
So the question related to whether you have to pay again. So yes, for instance, if your application wasn't up to snuff and they say you were not accepted, you have to reapply, you have to repay that $250 US fee for that. Same thing goes for your exam. If you fail your exam, that $475 is gone. You have to pay that again.
You don't have to reapply though?
You do not have to reapply as long as you're within that 1 year approval that you have. If for whatever reason you're unable to write within one of those 4 testing windows during that period, or you fail and you still can't, you just try and you keep paying money. Once you reach that 1 year and you still haven't passed, it's done. You have to go through the whole process again, reapply with the application fee, and then again, of course, exam fees.
That's why I put the emphasis earlier, like if you need to be sure that nothing's gonna get in the way of. Because I remember mine, it's like, okay, I did this, I did that, and oh, I'm gonna miss this exam window, and oh, I can't do this one, and oh, so it's, at some point I was at my last, it was a November exam where I had to start over. And I was on my way to my meetings in Cape Town. So I had,
scheduling it
yeah.
provides like an incentive, because I think I took
Yes.
the July boot camp and I scheduled it for November, and then I was like, oh yeah, lots of time, and then I don't know, like in October, I was like, oh yeah. Anyway, so I think it depends on how you work. Sometimes you want to study and say like, okay, I'm good to go, now I'll schedule it, and sometimes you know what personality you are to say, okay, I have this date, I know it's gonna work, that'll provide me something to make sure I just sit down and dedicate, because I do have the time in this time. So yes, try not to schedule it in a period where you know that you have major events at work or travel or just other things going on that mean you be extra stressed trying to do all that.
Can I ask a personal question? How much time did you each study-ish for this exam? Like,
The question is, how many hours did we each spend to study for our CMP exam? I don't know if I can quantify it.
I'm one of those under pressure person. So I did, well, it was different for me because I took the study group, which was, how many weeks was it? 8 weeks?
I think it was 10. I
10 weeks?
I thought it was like a couple of months, it was like once a week and then.
Yeah, so I had a whole week to read a chapter and I didn't even do that. And I just get to the, oh, okay, so I think, like, I know, like flashcards and whatever, okay, well, I go through the book and then I do flashcards and which isn't good, and I'm sure you probably spent more time studying, and I'm just like last minute, like it has to be fresh. It's
like it took over your lives though for a little bit.
Oh,
It depends. So the point.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah, it really depends, I think, on how you learn and how much time.
The point that was made was that MPI Ottawa used to run in-person boot camps and not boot camps, in-person study groups, and they would be held once a week or once every couple of weeks, and that would be that would be held over a period of 10 to 12 weeks. And usually we would try to say, we're covering this domain, by the next week you should have that domain read. And as Anne pointed out, that wouldn't always happen, life would happen, but you did your best to try to hold up. And I would say that period of about 10 to 12 weeks, we're not doing the in-person study groups right now. It is cumbersome for the volunteers, which is why we've introduced the study guide. I think that 10 to 12 week period, if you're trying to essentially cover a domain a week and give yourself a breather every couple weeks, you can probably study in that period and theoretically write after that. Again, this is very personal for people and how they experience it, but I do think if you're in that range of a couple months, 2 to 3 months, you should probably be able to get to the point where you should feel comfortable writing that exam because you've had the time to review those materials.
I think I had I did a couple chunks, like I did the boot camp in July, and I think I only decided about 2 weeks prior, so I think I got the textbooks and legit just read through them once cover to cover without doing like really anything, and then so that 2 days really helped to solidify and as much materials, which is basically stuff in the study guide. And then I think I didn't really do a lot for like 2 or 3 months, and then I think probably about 4 weeks before the exam, I kind of had like a, ugh. And then that was like, I would say that most evenings and weekends I was spending like a fair bit of time, like I'm just kind of work through like every, couple of days or whatever, like I would just take a domain, doing flashcards, reviewing the stuff we did in boot camp, things like that. So I think it depends also what else you had, like if you're able to say, okay, I've got 4 weeks, I'm just going to do nothing but that, and it's going to be fresh in my mind, or, if you learn better by, doing a domain a week and letting it digest. So it depends on how much time you have and how you learn best.
Yeah.
Under pressure, that's what works for me.
Yep.
But
I definitely
Right.
put in quite a bit at the end. I can tell you that. I spent some long nights making sure I was really ready, and I never felt totally ready. And thankfully, I was apparently.
And I also remember, I was like, it's been a very not like that long, I guess. And I was like, yeah, I've really done this with like, I don't know, 10 like since university to actually like to study for tests and yeah. So sometimes it also, if you have like study skills you can draw on, that is also helpful.
I did that too, like, because I'm a under pressure person. So I took maybe the 3-4 weeks before, which I was also getting ready for meetings. So I was just kind of filling my hair out. And I just read from cover to cover. And as I'm reading, I was highlighting. And then when I was done reading the chapter, then I take out the cards and then I do flashcards with it. And then when I went to my exam, I had my flashcards in my purse and I arrived early. And I kind of just went, just had a, because I'm visual. So I had one last look. But yeah, so for me too, it's like
a couple of weeks to a couple of months.
Yeah.
Probably from what you're talking.
To the benefit of the CMP study group that we used to offer, the multi-week thing, I've acknowledged that we have the self-directed study guide right now, and we're trying to improve and enhance that. We have just started up a Facebook group for those people who have bought the study guide. I'm just in the process of inviting everyone to the group, and then I'm sort of going to see what happens there. But it'll be an area where we can all coordinate and do weekly questions and pop quizzes. And hey, the group members can certainly go and get coffee and quiz each other and chat with each other about stuff. So there's nothing stopping them from doing that. So that's sort of a low maintenance method for us to do that, and I think that could be beneficial for some people. So if you do get the study guide, you're more than welcome to join that Facebook group. So that's one of the new developments.
And again, I'm just going to push for the boot camp because it's like everybody's just sitting around the table and then someone's going to ask a question that the other person probably didn't think of, and a lot it's interactive and it's a good, not a tool, it's a tool. You could call it a tool.
Tool, resource?
Resource, yes.
That's great.
Does the EIC provide any kind of benefit statements that people can use to pitch to their bosses,
For their
for their employers to potentially reimburse them?
The question is, does EIC offer any resources to sell this to your boss to say, can you please cover this? I am positive something must exist. You can't be the first person to have asked that. I'm sure if we Googled something, we'd probably find it. I don't know about it right now, but there has to be a good justification out there that I'm sure has been shared for exactly that purpose. I'm positive.
And I pitched it to work as a like professional development thing, so I paid for some of it. Because here's the benefit it would provide to me and by extension to you as my employer.
Yeah.
Does your employer have professional development budgets?
No, we have marketing spend, so conferences and education is really in turn based on networking opportunities. So this is brilliant for me.
Because that's how I sold it to my employer as well. And I wanted the Algonquin certificate as well. So I said I want to do the certificate so that when I do my CMP, and I want my CMP afterwards, so I'll have a better knowledge of.
Yeah, makes sense.
And since I'm in the and it's going to be a benefit to you after, then I'll be able to do all these wonderful meetings.
Great. Great.
Any further questions? Last call.
How's the youngest person to ever have gotten the CMP?
Oh, that's a stumper. I have
Oh
no
my
idea.
goodness.
I'm 25, so I'm not the oldest, probably trying to get it, but doesn't mean I'm not interested in trying. So where you'll have that over everybody else your age.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, because, so, yeah, there's a lot, not, yeah, so CMP is one marker of experience. I know that getting mine early in my career was really helpful because in a time where we do have industry experience, but it's that extra boost, especially starting out, to say, okay, yes, I do know what I'm talking about. So somebody has like 20, 30 years of experience, I mean, for them, like, it is still great having the CMP, but you're probably gonna get, there might be more benefits to getting it earlier, one from just a knowledge point of view, but also from for getting hired, for marketability, for being able to say, like, I would like more money because I have more experience. So, early on, I think is definitely the way to go.
I did it as personally, I did it as a precautionary measure. My executive director, as I mentioned earlier, I've been there with my association for almost 20 years. And 2 years ago, my executive director was retiring. And so I said, okay, well, I don't know who's going to be, because she's the one that picked me out of the accounting department and said you're doing meetings now. And I said, well, I don't have any experience. She goes, well, you can do this. So that's how I started. So I wanted something in my back pocket that if something goes south with the new leadership, I have this that can prove that I'm, okay, she put me in this position and I have the experience, but my CMP will actually support it. Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Pleasure hosting you tonight. If you have any further questions, you have my email because you've registered for this course, this program. Please, sorry?
And the slides will be.
And sorry, that's a good point as well. The slides will be distributed. We have recorded this, provided the recording worked. I will be able to share that with anybody who wasn't able to make it tonight. And of course, we'll provide you with the slides themselves so you can click the links that are embedded in those slides. Very good point. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.